the heartbreaking story of a girl who has to pay off her father's debt by giving herself to a loan shark. Even though her life was very poor, this beautiful girl never expected that her father had a debt to a man who came to collect it and destroyed her family's bookstore. Without mercy, they slapped and pushed the girl in the middle of the street, turning her into a spectacle for the townspeople. Seeing the girl bravely stand up to the debt collectors moved a manager named Tae-sang because it reminded him of his own past with a similar fate. He handed her a business card with his office address after the girl promised to pay the debt within the next 2 days. Because of the skyrocketing interest and feeling unable to pay, the father intended to end his life, which led the girl to offer herself to Tae-sang by agreeing to sleep with him. Unexpectedly, Tae-sang couldn't bring himself to ruin the future of the girl, whose name was Midu, so he refused her offer to spend the night and told her to go home. He said he would erase the loan interest and give her expensive food. Tae-sang's kindness didn't stop there. The next day, he ordered his men to visit Midu and give her a bank book that she could use to pay for her college tuition. The girl refused the gift because she was convinced there was an ulterior motive. However, Tae-sang insisted and promised that he would send money every month as long as Midu studied hard and was truly determined to change her fate. It seems that Tae-sang has grown tired of living a life that goes against his conscience. Apparently, he wants to leave the gangster world behind. The boss, unable to accept Tae-sang's betrayal, planned to beat him up while Tae-sang was camping with a friend, leading to an unavoidable fight. After failing to teach Tae-sang a lesson, the gangster boss kidnapped Midu and took her hostage to force Tae-sang into signing a cooperation contract. To free Midu from the gangster's hideout, Tae-sang was willing to suffer serious injuries from the boss's attack. Midu managed to escape while Tae-sang collapsed helplessly. Not long after, one of his most loyal subordinates came to help. Fortunately, Tae-sang managed to survive the incident. He has also been through a difficult process over the past 7 years. With perseverance, Tae-sang successfully built a money-lending company called Golden Tree. The purpose of establishing Golden Tree is to help lower middle-class people get loans. They won't be burdened by high interest rates like when borrowing from loan sharks. None of this would be possible without the role of Chang-hee, one of Tae-sang's loyal subordinates. 7 years ago, Chang-hee was the one who saved Tae-sang's life. Chang-hee was willing to be arrested by the police for killing a gangster boss in order to help Tae-sang. Chang-hee just wants his loyalty to be repaid with a proper education for his younger brother, Jae-hee. Tae-sang then kept his promise by paying for Jae-hee's college education abroad. He even made Jae-hee one of his trusted people. Meanwhile, 7 years have passed, but Midu still hasn't been able to realize her dream. She didn't use a single cent of the money she received from Tae-sang for her college tuition in order to protect her pride. Midu instead worked as a waiter in a restaurant while auditioning to become a news anchor. He actually envies his younger brother who is always optimistic about achieving their dreams, while he himself is just focused on earning money to pay for his father's hospital bills and helping his family escape poverty. Midu's job applications to broadcasting companies still haven't been accepted. She also looks for ways to cover untold stories as a stepping stone. With the help of a friend, Midu managed to get into a party hosted by a boutique owner. Midu reveals the boutique owner is a matchmaker for the wealthy. She will also seek information related to conglomerates who often manipulate stocks. Unexpectedly, the conglomerate's child at the party recognized Midu as the waitress from the restaurant she frequents. She then insulted Midu for being an uninvited guest. The dispute between the two was witnessed by all the guests. They never expected Midu would have such guts to fight back against the conglomerate's child. The next day, the conglomerate's daughter takes revenge by visiting the restaurant where Midu works. They reported to the manager about Midu's poor performance. Midu could only silence seeing the attitude of the conglomerate's child. She was given two choices: kneel and apologize or pay for all their orders. Midu didn't have that much money, but she didn't want to hurt her pride by apologizing for something she never did. As she was about to kneel, Midu's arm was grabbed by Tae-sang, who also happened to be in the restaurant. Tae-sang then paid for all the conglomerate children's food and pulled Midu away from the place. Tae-sang didn't expect to meet Midu in a situation like this. He was disappointed as Midu didn't use the money he gave to continue higher education. Midu is puzzled because Tae-sang keeps being kind to her as if he has his own ulterior motives. Tae-sang doesn't want Midu embarrassed in front of the restaurant's customers.
내가 보낸 돈이 모자랐던 건가?
In the middle of their conversation, Song-ju showed up, where Song-ju is the ex-lover of the late gangster boss. Even when she was still dating the gangster boss, Song-ju secretly liked Tae-sang. After the gangster boss died, Song-ju actually got even closer to Tae-sang. Even though Song-ju's feelings are not reciprocated, she doesn't want to be far from the man. She then chose to be friends with Tae-sang until now. Seeing the way Tae-sang treats Midu, Song-ju becomes convinced that Midu is the one who has always been in the man's heart. In her heart, Song-ju feels jealous because she can't make Tae-sang forget his past. The incident at the restaurant made Midu decide to quit her job. Tae-sang tries to find out where she is and helps ease her burden by paying Mr. Kang Wook's hospital bills. Midu feels uncomfortable with Tae-sang's attitude of always helping her. If Midu objects, Tae-sang asks her to pay it back by working at Golden Tree. For Tae-sang, recruiting Midu was the best decision. That girl is smart and is talented, so it would be a waste if Midu were just be a waiter restaurant or a lowly employee. Midu's presence makes Tae-sang even more enthusiastic about working. From now on, Tae-sang will see Midu more often, and without waiting long, he asks the girl to marry him.
우리 같이 살자.
Unfortunately, the proposal was rejected by Midu. She promised to repay everything Tae-sang had given her by working diligently at his company. Midu doesn't want to rush into making a decision so that she won't regret it later. She wanted to heal the inner wounds caused by Tae-sang and get to know the man better.
받아들일 수 없습니다.
As time goes by, Midu gets to know Tae-sang better. Unexpectedly, Tae-sang turns out has the same fate as him. No wonder he helps teenagers who are struggling to pay for their education. Tae-sang is highly respected by the employees because he always treats them very well. He is also known to be generous and fair to everyone. This was proven when Tae-sang gave Midu a tour ticket the guise of a business trip. He hopes that Midu can have fun and learn a lot in the country she's going to. That hope came true because Midu looked very happy. She really enjoyed the trip and considered it a valuable experience. At that time, Midu wanted to give news to Tae-sang, but unexpectedly, Song-ju was the one who received the call. Midu then turned off her phone because she felt angry and jealous. She decided to turn off her phone and go for a walk. Unexpectedly, the map she dropped was found by Jae-hee. As a fellow South Korean, Jae-hee is happy to recommend places for Midu to visit. Midu even spent a lot of time with that man. They did a variety of fun activities together, and it turns out they've actually known each other for a long time. 7 years ago, the two of them once stood in line to get free rice. Even though it was just once, their meeting left quite an impression. Midu was surprised by Jae-hee's fate because they came from a family that lived in poverty, but now Jae-hee has become a successful person while Midu feels like she's just stuck in the same place. Jae-hee admits that she was able to get to this point thanks to help from someone. The time they spend together grows feelings of love in Jae-hee's heart. He also hopes to have a relationship with Midu.
사랑이 이루어진대요.
Meanwhile, due to a misunderstanding, Midu doesn't pick up Tae-sang's phone. The girl was then approached by Tae-sang, who couldn't wait any longer to explain everything. Tae-sang's invitation to dinner was turned down by Midu because she already had plans with a friend she'd just met. Tae-sang didn't mind and was willing to change the schedule. Unbeknownst to Tae-sang, the person Midu is referring to is Jae-hee.
아, 근데 무슨 좋은 일 있어? 얼굴 좋아졌네?
On the other hand, Midu began to feel doubt in her heart. Unexpectedly, two good men came into her life. Both men absolutely perfectly fit Midu's dream criteria. Jae-hee is a very pleasant person who can always be relied on when Midu is sad, while Tae-sang is an innocent and naive man. Actually, Tae-sang doesn't know how to treat women well, even though Midu can understand his reasons. It doesn't change that Tae-sang has played a huge role in Midu's life. Everything Midu has achieved, including work at companies and traveling abroad, is thanks to Tae-sang. She also has to be more realistic, as this thinking is needed to live an increasingly difficult life. After considering it, she decided to accept Tae-sang's invitation to dinner. Midu appreciates that man's kindness and sincerity, but that doesn't mean Midu dislikes Jae-hee, because 3 days just isn't enough for her to figure out how she really feels about him. Maybe what Midu is feeling right now is only temporary. She just needed an outlet after being let down by Tae-sang. As she was about to enter the restaurant, Midu caught Tae-sang with Song-ju. She listened to their conversation, and from what she heard, Tae-sang didn't want Song-ju to be part of his life. As soon as her whereabouts were known, Midu immediately left. She doesn't want to give Tae-sang a chance to explain. At night, while strolling around the hotel, Midu accidentally saw Tae-sang swimming. Midu noticed a scar on the man's back, which instantly reminded her of the incident from 7 years ago. She believes the wound was obtained when Tae-sang saved her from an attack by a gangster boss. Midu boldly approaches Tae-sang and asks about it. Tae-sang tries to cover things up and brings up the misunderstanding happened at the restaurant. Midu thinks Song-ju is Tae-sang's girlfriend. She felt was being played, so that Tae-sang tried to explain. Tae-sang doesn't care if Song-ju likes him because he likes Midu more. Unbeknownst to them, Song-ju was actually quietly listening into their conversation. Meanwhile, Jae-hee wants to express his feelings to Midu. He had prepared flowers and a gift for her. Unfortunately, Jae-hee's hopes ended when Midu chose to return to South Korea. Midu does enjoy spending time with Jae-hee, but she can't continue their relationship. Jae-hee is disappointed and sad because nothing turned out the way he hoped. Midu is the only woman who could make Jae-hee fall in love, which is why he feels such deep heartbreak. However, Jae-hee hasn't given up to winning Midu's heart. He decided to return to Korea and work at Tae-sang's company so he could meet Midu again. On the other hand, for the first time, Tae-sang visits Midu's house. He was welcomed by Midu's mother, who hoped her child would end up with him. Tae-sang is treated to a meal that makes him eat heartily. He was so happy because it had been a long time since he'd eaten food like that. He also shared about his background, telling them how he had once been abandoned by both his parents and his younger sibling. From that moment on, Tae-sang had to take on illegal jobs just to survive.
좋아하는 여자한테 뭘 어떻게 해줘야 하는지도 잘 모릅니다.
Tae-sang has no one to rely on. He also never had a relationship with anyone, so he didn't know what to do for a woman he liked. At that time, Tae-sang admitted that he liked Midu and asked permission to make her girlfriend. Mr. Kyung-wook disagrees because he thinks Tae-sang is not suitable for his daughter. Tae-sang is indeed rich and successful, but the age difference between him and Midu is very large. Apart from that, Tae-sang also gave deep trauma for Mr. Kyung-wook. Go still can't forget the way Tae-sang treated he in the past.
가서 맥주 좀 사오라.
For Midu, the age difference isn't an obstacle as long as Tae-sang is sincere and responsible. Midu thinks realistically and believes Tae-sang is a man who fits the criteria she's looking for. Midu doesn't want to live a hard life like before, so she wants to try having a relationship with a rich man. Midu realizes that he needs a lot of money to be able to live decently. All this time, she has been working hard to get it, and now it's time for her to experience a happy life. She also wants to elevate her parents' status. However, Mr. Kyung-wook disagreed though his wife supported their relationship. Mrs. Sunny even gave Midu's ring as a size sample in case Tae-sang wanted to buy a ring for his daughter.
미도가 멋스럽게 단 반지.
Meanwhile, Jae-hee felt very happy when he read the quote on the whiteboard in front of the Midu bookstore. It turns out that Jae-hee once shared that quote with Midu, which made him think that she wrote it because she missed him so much. That night, Jae-hee accidentally met Midu in the middle of the street. Midu never thought she would meet Jae-hee again. She also apologized for her sudden departure while they were in Hong Kong. Midu admits that she likes a man. She even refuses to go home with Jae-hee and chooses to take a taxi to avoid him. Unexpectedly, Jae-hee had arrived in front of Midu's house first. Jae-hee asks the quote on the whiteboard, but Midu felt like she never wrote it there. Midu tried to deny it, but Jae-hee gently kissed her on the cheek, which left Midu shocked by Jae-hee's action. Mi-jun, who is none other than Midu's younger brother, apparently saw their actions. Mi-jun continues to nag because Midu let Jae-hee kiss her because his older sister already has a boyfriend. Unexpectedly, Tae-sang overhears their conversation. He had apparently been waiting for Midu inside the shop for almost half an hour. Midu was unaware of Tae-sang's existence. She only found out after her mother told her. Midu feels a bit worried that Tae-sang might hear about or even see what she's doing with Jae-hee. When Midu approached, Tae-sang didn't show any sign of disappointment. He admitted that he had written a quote from the book Midu was reading on the board, which made Jae-hee misunderstand.
칠판에 그렸대? 내가 고른 건데.
The next day, Midu warned Jae-hee not to repeat what he did last night. She doesn't want Tae-sang to misunderstand, nor does she want Jae-hee to get jealous of Tae-sang for winning Midu's heart.
더 좋아질 것 같은 친구를 여행지에서 만났다고.
Before parting, Jae-hee encourages Midu to realize her long-held dream of becoming a show director. This makes Midu remember it and discuss it again with Mi-jun. On the other hand, Chon-hee was finally released after spending years in prison. Chon-hee was welcomed with joy by Tae-sang, who couldn't wait to hire him. While picking out a suit at a store, Chon-hee is startled by the arrival of Young-gap, that is friend of the late Gangster boss. Young-gap tries to provoke Chon-hee. He felt that all this time, Chon-hee had been made a scapegoat by Tae-sang. Chon-hee was unaffected, but got upset when Young-gap mentioned Jae-hee could go to a good school without knowing his older brother's sacrifices. Chon-hee then hit Young-gap with great emotion. Unexpectedly, the store's CCTV had recorded his actions. Young-gap's report was immediately processed by the police, and Chon-hee was arrested on suspicion of assault. Upon learning about this, Tae-sang couldn't hide his anger. He is calmed by Song-ju, who promised to persuade Young-gap to withdraw the report. Young-gap is willing to accept Chon-hee's apology as long as Song-ju agrees to go on a date with him. He knows that Song-ju is doing all of this just for Tae-sang.
나한테 원하는 게 뭐라고?
Song-ju remembers what Young-gap once said, that he would never give up until he won her heart. Young-gap will do whatever it takes, even take someone's life, if anyone dares to mess up his plans. Song-ju was forced to give in to Young-gap's desire to kiss him. At that time, she tried to fight back, but couldn't match Young-gap's strength. Song-ju felt very uncomfortable and hoped that the incident would soon disappear from his memory. Yeongap's decision to withdraw the report made Tae-sang feel happy. He feels indebted to Song-ju, who helped stop Yeongap to pressing charges against Chong-hee.
내일 사무실로 와라 합의해 준댄다.
Unexpectedly, the next day, Yeongap came to Golden Tree with several bodyguards. He forced Chong-hee to apologize in front of the company employees. At that time, Chong-hee tried to hold back his anger when Tae-sang was also asked to kneel to get forgiveness from the man. Chong-hee angry peaked when Yeongap mentioned the gangster boss's death and how he was set against others.
뭐 키스까지 해주면서 부탁을 하는데.
Mida didn't want Tae-sang to obey Yeongap's orders, so that she intended to call the police. Before she could do it, Mida's body was pushed by one of Yeongap's guards. Seeing that, Tae-sang hit the perpetrator and a fight broke out that couldn't be avoided. Tae-sang tried to block every punch, but he ended up being ganged up on by several bodyguards until he lost control of the situation. Mida then attacked the guard because he couldn't bear to watch it, but she got slapped instead. Tae-sang can no longer hold back his anger and immediately hits the guards who slapped Midu. The sight also traumatized Midu because it reminded him of an incident 7 years ago. She was afraid that what she didn't want to happen would happen again. After the fight ended, Chong-hee regretted what he had done. He should have been able to control his emotions when he heard Yeongap's words. Tae-sang didn't make a big deal out of it and instead asked Chong-hee to go see Jae-hee right away. After such a long time apart, Chong-hee and Jae-hee expressed how much they missed each other by hugging. Because she was so happy, Jae-hee couldn't hold back his tears. The two of them shared stories about the overwhelming happiness they felt. The next day, Jae-hee was introduced as the new director at Golden Tree. How surprised Midi was when he found out about that. On the other hand, he was just as shocked when he saw that Midu was actually working at Golden Tree. Midu never expected to be reunited with Jae-hee as co-workers. The two of them pretended not to know each other in front of Tae-sang and the other employees. Jae-hee took advantage of this chance to see Midu again by spending more time with her. At their last meeting, Jae-hee didn't get the chance to tell Midu about his plans. Jae-hee chose to return to South Korea and work at Tae-sang's company, even though he actually had great opportunities to work for companies abroad. Jae-hee made that decision to repay Tae-sang's kindness for paying his education. Midu could hardly believe what she was hearing. It was a coincidence she never expected to happen in her life. It turned out she wasn't the only one who received a scholarship from Tae-sang. Meanwhile, Tae-sang kept his promise to have dinner with Song-ju. Thinking it would be a romantic dinner, Song-ju is disappointed to find out she's not the only guest invited. Chom-hee and Dong-gu were there as well. At that time, Song-ju pretended everything was fine to not ruin the mood. When he was about to be taken home, Song-ju found rings in Tae-sang's car. In her heart, she hoped that the beautiful rings were meant for her. Song-ju is sad and angry when she realizes that she has no hope at all to be by Tae-sang's side, even though her feelings have never changed. There's no point in Song-ju begging for hope because Tae-sang will never give it to her. Because that man has given his heart to Midu.
나 다른 사람을 좋아하고 있습니다.
Tae-sang is even willing to do anything for her, including playing piano. He got the information from Mrs. Sunny that Midu likes men who can play that musical instrument. At first, Tae-sang is excited to touch his newly purchased piano, but the object eventually reminded him of his mother, because she was the one who introduced Tae-sang to the piano. It's been long since Tae-sang saw his mother, and all this time, he never looked for her, nor did she try to find him. Without Tae-sang knowing, his biological mother had opened a beef soup shop to survive. Mrs. Honja spent her old age filled with regret. She doesn't want Tae-sang to know her presence because she feels ashamed of her past mistakes. Uncle Tae-sang's presence makes Mrs. Honja's life even more disturbed. A man named Baekshul was asked not to tell anyone about her whereabouts. If he insists on telling Tae-sang, Mrs. Honja will not hesitate to finish him off. Mrs. Honja realizes that Baekshul isn't worried about her at all because the only thing that man wants is money. Baekshul considers the now successful Tae-sang as a money field. Baekshul ignored Honja's warning. One day, he recklessly went to the Golden Tree office to meet his nephew. Luckily, Tae-sang wasn't there at the time. Apparently, he was spent the weekend with Midu. He took the girl to visit his hometown. There, Tae-sang shows where he lives, his school, and the places he has visited.
행복했던 집이야.
Tae-sang used to be a very happy man. He had many friends and always got perfect grades in every subject. Tae-sang thought his life would go as he hoped, but in reality, he had to go through many sharp twists and turns. Everything got worse after he lost his mother and younger sibling. One day, Mrs. Honja goes out with her loved one, and sometime later, Tae-sang's younger sibling disappears. Tae-sang is confident that he will meet his younger sibling. Throughout their journey, Tae-sang realized that Midu was in a bad mood. The girl refused the ring he gave her because Tae-sang didn't tell her what happened the other day. Midu was actually scared when she saw Tae-sang beating Yeonggap's men hard. She felt doubtful and uncomfortable about being in a relationship with him. Hearing that Tae-sang gets angry since he can't understand Midu's feelings. He knows that all this time, Midu was forced into a relationship with him. Tae-sang tries to lower his ego to apologize for acting violently in front of Midu. He then put on one of the rings and handed the other to Midu.
다 잘못했어.
Midu feels guilty because she only saw Tae-sang's bad side, even though he has done so much for her. The next day, Midu decided to use the ring Tae-sang gave her as a pendant for her necklace. Tae-sang felt relieved to see Midu wearing the ring, since there was a problem at work then. Video Tae-sang's fight with Yeonggap has apparently spread on the internet. As a result, the investors pulled their funds out. Finally, Tae-sang gathered all the employees to apologize because this issue could affect them. Fortunately, CCTV footage was found showing Yeonggap's men pushing Midu before entering the Golden Tree office. The recording can be used to show Yeonggap and his gang were who started the fight. From the employees, Jae-hee learned why they fought, namely Chung-hee lost his temper after being insulted by Yeonggap. The employees don't know Jae-hee is Chung-hee's younger brother. Jae-hee becomes increasingly curious as to why Chung-hee is in prison. With a heavy heart, Tae-sang explains that Chung-hee saved his life. Jae-hee concludes that Tae-sang is repaying Chung-hee's kindness by paying for his education. Tae-sang denies this because all this time he considered Chung-hee as his brother, and he did it sincerely.
그거랑 상관없어. 창이는 내 식구니까.
Meanwhile, Chung-hee meets Yeonggap without Tae-sang's knowledge. He wanted to resolve the issue within the family so it wouldn't negatively affect the company. Chung-hee's short temper is exploited by Yeonggap to provoke a fight. Chung-hee tries to hold himself back when Yeonggap threatens to tell Jae-hee. Chung-hee doesn't want Jae-hee to lose him dream because he has an older brother who is an ex-convict. Chung-hee also begs Yeonggap not to bother Tae-sang anymore. He wants them to stop fighting and go on with their own lives. On the other hand, Midu wants to keep her relationship with Tae-sang a secret from the employees, even though Tae-sang actually wants to introduce Midu to Jae-hee. At first, Midu initially declined Tae-sang's invitation to go to his house, but after thinking it over, she eventually agreed. Sooner or later, Jae-hee will find out about their relationship. Tae-sang reconsiders the reason for Midu's rejection and cancels his intention to invite the girl to Jae-hee's house. She worried Jae-hee would feel uncomfortable around her boss's boyfriend, decided to come alone. This makes Midu even more confused because she had everything from Tae-sang and Jae-hee. The next day, Uncle Baekshul visited the Golden Tree Company for the second time. He acts like cares, but Tae-sang feels disgusted by it. Tae-sang gets even more annoyed when Uncle Baekshul talks about his mother. Uncle Baekshul is willing to find Mrs. Hanja as long as he gets a reward from Tae-sang. Apparently at that time he ran out of money as he had lost at gambling. Tae-sang refuses as his heart still feels traumatized when remembers his biological mother. Uncle Baekshul was asked not to see him again, but that only made Baekshul even angrier. Uncle Baekshul said in a threatening tone that made Tae-sang unable to control his emotions. At that time, Mida took the initiative to comfort Tae-sang. She invited him to go to the night market and enjoy all the rides there. After Tae-sang calmed down, Midu asked about Uncle Baekshul. Mida looked very worried, but she could understand if Tae-sang wasn't ready to talk yet. Meanwhile, Jae-hee meets Sung-yoon, a conglomerate's daughter who once had a conflict with Midu. Song-ju has a good plan for that. Jae-hee tries to look enthusiastic, even though Song-ju can tell he's just pretending. Song-ju knows that Jae-hee still has high hopes for Midu. Midu's rejection didn't immediately make Jae-hee give up. She instead did everything she could to get closer to the girl, including buying her a beautiful pair of shoes. Before giving the shoes to Midu, Jae-hee's mood changed after bad rumors about Chung-hee spread. Jae-hee hears some bad news from a Golden Tree employee. They were afraid if Chung-hee might be hired there because he was a former convict. That made Jae-hee think all day. He felt worried, sad, and angry but didn't know what to do. At that time, Jae-hee needed someone to talk to. Jae-hee remembers Midu, who he thought could understand his feelings. But the girl didn't pick up her phone, so Jae-hee decided to go to her house. Unexpectedly, Jae-hee sees Midu and Tae-sang was making out. In an instant, his heart felt like it stopped beating because he couldn't believe what he was seeing. This reality made Jae-hee's heart feel like it was being stabbed by a sword over and over again. He went home with feeling sad. If the person with Midu was someone else, Jae-hee wouldn't be this hurt. Jae-hee isn't sure if the happiness that Midu expresses to him is truly from her heart. Jae-hee came home looking gloomy, making Chung-hee worried. Jae-hee also didn't answer his older brother question honestly. He instead asks about Chung-hee's bond with Tae-sang. After all this time, it was finally time for Chang-hee to reveal the secret he had been hiding. His closeness to Tae-sang began when Chung-hee worked as an underling for a loan shark. Chung-hee was forced to take that job because he wasn't an educated man. Chung-hee feels a connection with Tae-sang because neither of them has anyone to rely on. As time went by, they grew close, and Chung-hee came to see Tae-sang as family. Chung-hee's explanation made Jae-hee not want to betray Tae-sang. He tried to avoid Midu whenever he was at the office. Even when Midu apologized for being late in seeing Jae-hee's message, Jae-hee's attitude was unusual. He seemed cold and unenthusiastic. Midu noticed that Jae-hee acted differently, but he didn't know what was causing it. Midu regrets because not answering Jae-hee's call last night. Even though Jae-hee was always there for Midu and encouraged her not to give up on her dreams, especially because she wanted to study abroad. Jae-hee felt comforted when welcoming party for the new director. Both she and Midu had a good time, as if their memory in Hong Kong was happening all over again. The next day, Tae-sang is rejected by the investors because the video of the fight has spread. They see Golden Tree to be a company with a bad reputation. Golden Tree also can't rely on loans from banks. Yonggap has given them false information to make Golden Tree look even worse. Tae-sang's patience has now run out, but he won't act recklessly. He intends to meet Yonggap, majorly responsible for this problem. Tae-sang threatens to sue Yonggap for embezzling funds from the gangster boss. Yonggap keeps denying it, however Tae-sang has enough evidence. That threat made Yonggap feel afraid. Seeing this, Mrs. Sunny felt sorry. On the other hand, Tae-sang hears from Chung-hee that Jae-hee has a lover. Chung-hee found a pair of women's shoes, still neatly wrapped, in his younger brother's room. Chung-hee suspects the item is a gift Jae-hee meant to give his girlfriend. At the office, Tae-sang teases Jae-hee about it. Jae-hee reasoned that his girlfriend's shoes are broken. Jae-hee's method is followed by Tae-sang, but he chooses the wrong shoe size for Mido. However, the girl didn't make a big deal out of the mistake. She still accepts Tae-sang's invitation to spend the weekend out of town. Tae-sang looks happy because now he can joke around and laugh freely with Mido. Moments like this had never even crossed his mind before. He always waits to find a woman who can make him forget the past. Tae-sang feels that now is the time to discuss marriage. He was ready to propose to Mido, but at that time Tae-sang tried to ignore Mido's surprise. She don't know how to respond to what Tae-sang said. Mido is sure that Tae-sang will be a good husband, but she isn't ready to answer his question yet. There are still many things Mido wants to do before she gets married. She wants to be truly mentally prepared when that day comes. On the other hand, Yeongap gets angry because of Tae-sang's threats. His life is a mess, and he has nowhere to turn. Yeongap tries to contact Songju, but the woman refused to accompany him. Yeongap felt frustrated, so he called Donggu to invite him for a drink. Just like Songju, Donggu also rejects Yeonggap's invitation. Apparently, Donggu is thinking about how to get money because he suffered losses from gambling. He then asked Cheonghee for help to borrow money from Tae-sang. Cheonghee gets angry at Donggu for not learning from his mistakes, having failed multiple times. Donggu defends himself because he is the backbone of the family. He was just a poor man from the countryside with no education. Donggu feels like his loyalty isn't appreciated by Tae-sang. When Cheonghee was in prison, only Donggu helped Tae-sang, but he was never given a luxury house. Cheonghee then wants to exchange the house that Tae-sang gave him. Instead of being grateful, Donggu is even more annoyed. If Noe would end like this, he would have replaced Cheonghee earlier. Meanwhile, Songju plans to bring beef soup from Mrs. Honja's restaurant for Tae-sang. When Songju visited Tae-sang's house, she saw him preparing to welcome a special guest. Songju was sure all those preparations were made for Mido, but she didn't care. She chose to serve the food she brought so that Tae-sang could eat it right away. That taste reminded Tae-sang of the dish his mother used to make. Songju is happy to see Tae-sang eating his food with gusto. At the same time, Mido called Tae-sang. Songju deliberately shouted for Mido to know she was at Tae-sang's house. Fortunately, Mido didn't misunderstand and readily agreed to accept Tae-sang's invitation to his house. The next day, Tae-sang welcomed Mido with great happiness. He had already made sure his house was clean. All the cooking ingredients are also neatly arranged in the kitchen to prepare meals. Mido then washed her hands so she could help Tae-sang cook. In the sink, she found a bracelet belonging to a woman. Unexpectedly, Songju comes to retrieve her lost bracelet. The atmosphere was awkward, but Tae-sang quickly lightened the mood. From her expression, Mido seemed annoyed, which interrupted the moment. Mido suspected Tae-sang and Songju's relationship was more than friendship. Tae-sang explains that he and Songju have no relationship whatsoever. However, at that time, Tae-sang actually happy to find out that Mido was jealous.
나 지금 솔직히 말하면
Tae soothes his jealousy by asking about her friend's audition. Mido then shared that her friend who auditioned had been fired from her job. Her friend had always wanted to be a singer, but she was held back by financial issues. Tae-sang comments on it as a careless attitude, and he doesn't want Mido to act like that. As a result, Mido became reluctant to reveal her true dream. Maybe Tae-sang thought Mido's only dream was to escape financial trouble.
그쪽 일을 하고 싶어 한다고 해서 헛바람이 들었다고 말하면 안 되지.
Actually, Mido had long dreamed of becoming an art director. That desire grew stronger after he put up a poster of Kalyazu, Mido's idol art director, in front of the bookstore. Jae also asked Mido to attend Kalyazu's seminar. Mido was so excited to get this opportunity that she accidentally dropped her dream notebook on the bus. She only realized it after she arrived at the office. Because he plans to show Kalyazi's signature to Jae-hee. Without thinking, Midu immediately looked for her dream notebook at the bus terminal. She entered one by one the buses there. Midu is surprised by Jae-hee's presence, who finds her notebook. Midu is very grateful to Jae-hee, who is willing to help. Without realizing, Tae-sang secretly overheard their conversation.
말했던 사인 보여줘.
Tae-sang quickly moved away so they wouldn't see him. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. Tae-sang doesn't know that Midu is so close to Jae-hee. Thinking about it made Tae-sang so stressed that the wound on his back started to hurt. Tae-sang wonders why Mido didn't ask him for help to find her book. He believed this has something to do with what happened at the office when Mido expressed her jealousy toward Tae-sang. Tae-sang was offended because he was accused of giving Song-ju false hope. He apparently made a fatal mistake by scolding Midu without thinking about her feelings.
나랑 어울리는 사람이 아니었어.
One day, Jae-hee deliberately introduces Midu to Kalyazu. Jae-hee did that to make Midu happy and to remember the dream she had kept hidden all this time. Jae-hee feels that this is the right time to admit that Chang-hee is his biological older brother. Midu apologizes for saying bad things about Chang-hee. Chang-hee is not a scary person. The man was imprisoned because he saved someone. Everyone would do it if they were in Chang-hee's position.
하나뿐인 가족이고 사랑하는 형이에요.
The next day, Jae-hee offers Sun-yoon to invest in Golden Tree. She is willing to persuade her father as long as Jae-hee treats her to a meal. Unexpectedly, Sung-in saw Midu there. She then started bad-mouthing the girl in front of Jae-hee. According to her, Midu is just a poor girl who is arrogant and rude. She agrees to invest if Midu is fired, but Jae-hee rejects the request. Instead, Jae-hee defended Midu and made it clear he didn't like Sung-yoon. At that time, Jae-hee's face was splashed with a drink by Sung-yoon. Seeing that, Midu didn't remain silent. She took a teapot of water and was about to splash it on Sung-yoon. Jae-hee was amazed by Midu's very brave attitude. He believes that Midu is a strong girl with big ambitions. Jae-hee had to quickly dry his wet clothes because they had a meeting to attend soon. Thinking about meeting makes Midu a lit anxious. She finally shared that she received an interview invitation from Kalezu Company, but the schedule coincided with a work meeting. Since long ago, she had always dreamed of working at that company. In fact, Midu had applied there long before working at Golden Tree.
꼭 가고 싶었던 회사에서 연락이 왔거든요.
Jae-hee then helped Midu so she could attend the interview. Jae-hee reasons that Midu is working on the assignment he gave. Midu felt very relieved after the interview. At that time, Midu was accepted and would start working next month, but she was a little hesitant as she still owed Tae-sang.
거기 미도 씨가 됐다고?
On the other hand, Tae-sang feels Midu is avoiding him. Midu even refuses dinner from Tae-sang because she has plans with Jae-hee. This must have something to do with the misunderstanding today when Midu caught Song-ju taking off the bandage on Tae-sang's back. Tae-sang then ended his friendship with Song-ju so Midu wouldn't get the wrong idea. Song-ju tried to accept Tae-sang's decision, but was also angry about being treated this way.
쫓아다닌대요. 한태상 씨.
After leaving Song-ju's house, Tae-sang met Midu at the bookstore. He wanted to apologize for making her upset. Midu finally came clean about the interview she had done. She asked Tae-sang for permission to work in London. Tae-sang actually wanted to support Midu's dream, but was afraid of being separated from the girl. Tae-sang then asks Midu not to leave. He didn't want to live a life full of waiting like before. Moreover, he had already planned to propose to the girl in the very near future.
당신이?
This made Midu feel confused. She asked for some time to think about it. Midu feels that her thoughts are not in line with Tae-sang. According to her, Tae-sang is very selfish and thinks that Midu's dream is meaningless. Unlike Jae-hee, who is willing to do anything for Midu to make her dreams come true. After giving it some thought, Midu has firmly decided to work in London. She envies Tae-sang, but she also doesn't want to lose her dream. Midu has decided to end her relationship with Tae-sang. She wanted to choose her own path in life. Even though it was hard to do, there had to be sacrifices to get what you want.
그래서 나도 부탁했잖아.
Midu feels really guilty, but no matter what, working abroad has always been her dream. She didn't want to miss out on such a great opportunity. Midu also promised to repay her debt to Tae-sang. Tae-sang actually gets angry because he never brought up the issue of debt. He concludes that all this time, Midu never truly loved him. Meanwhile, Uncle Baekshul returns to Golden Tree to ask Tae-sang for money. He argued that Mrs. Honja was being treated in the hospital and needed a lot of money. Knowing this, He insisted on looking for information related to the news from Uncle Baekshul. He feared the news was fake and that Uncle Baekshul only wanted to deceive Tae-sang. He's suspicion was correct if it turned out to be Uncle Baekshul's plan. He then chased after the man and managed to catch him at a dead end. Uncle Baekshul promises to tell Mrs. Honja's whereabouts if he is given money. Hee is upset because Baekshul had lied to him. Uncle Baekshul was also threatened and beaten up until he was forced to take Hee to Mrs. Honja's restaurant.
약속한 겁니다. 내가 알려준 건 절대 비밀.
Hee sheds tears because he can't bear to imagine Tae-sang's expression if he knew what his mother's condition is like right now. Hee feels sorry for Tae-sang, whose life is always suffering. He wants the man to marry soon and forgive his mother so he can live in peace, as all this time Tae-sang has lived a difficult life, even though he is a good person. Not only Hee feels helped, Dong-gu also just found out the fact that Tae-sang always sends money to his mother in the village. Meanwhile, Song-ju hears that Tae-sang's younger brother Taemin is likely already dead. She then confirmed the news with Taemin's school. The school got the news from someone claiming to be Taemin's relative. Song-ju feels sad as all the time Tae-sang hoped to meet his younger sibling. During the trip, she lost focus on driving and had an accident. Young-gap is the first person Song-ju contacted. The man then paid administration fee and took Song-ju home. While helping to clean Song-ju's house, Young-gap found a photo of Tae-sang and Taemin when they were little. Young-gap admitted that he had visited Mrs. Honja's restaurant and found a note left by Song-ju. Young-gap will do anything for the woman he loves, including destroying Tae-sang's family. However, this was opposed by Song-ju. Young-gap instead plans to find someone who will pretend to be Tae-sang's younger sibling. It turns out he wants revenge because Tae-sang has hurt his pride as a man.
어쩔 셈이었어. 알리지 않는 게 복수인가?
Meanwhile, Mida tells her family about her plan to go to London. Her father agreed, but his mother firmly refused. Mrs. Sunny asks Midu to think about Tae-sang's feelings. Everything that Midu has now is thanks to Tae-sang's help. Midu's hesitation to leave grew, especially after she got advice from her friend. Midu also reads the quote written by Tae-sang on the whiteboard, which hints at a fear of separation.
매운 비빔국수를 같이 먹고 싶은 날.
The next day, Mida calmly sets off on a business trip with Tae-sang. Seeing that Mida's shoes were already worn out, Mrs. Sunny asked Midu to wear a different pair. But Midu didn't want to wear the shoes given by Jae-hee to avoid any misunderstandings. Unbeknownst to Midu, Mrs. Sunny put the shoes in her bag. On the way, Tae-sang admits that he is dating Midu. Jae-hee pretends to be surprised even though he has known it for a long time. While relaxing, Mida got a call saying Khaleesi's company canceled her work contract. Mida wants an explanation as she didn't receive any prior notification. Mida suspects that this might be Tae-sang's doing because she once saw him enter Khaleesi's office. Mida was so sad that she couldn't stop crying. Jae-hee meant to cheer up Mida by placing flowers outside her room. After thinking about it, he didn't want to cause any misunderstandings, so he decided not to. Unexpected, Midu suddenly opened the door to the room as Jae-hee was about to pick up the flowers. Jae-hee then handed Midu the flower and comforted her so she wouldn't be sad. As Midu closed the door, Jae-hee entered and kissed her. Midu tries to resist and break free from Jae-hee's kiss, and unexpectedly Tae-sang calls Midu from outside the room. Midu and Jae-hee were shaking in fear of being caught. Neither of them responded to Tae-sang's words. As soon as Tae-sang left, Midu asked Jae-hee to return to her room. Unexpectedly, Jae-hee opened the door just as Tae-sang was coming out. Feeling worried, Jae-hee says that he will get a glass of wine to take to his room. Tae-sang doesn't have the slightest suspicion. When she got to his room, Jae-hee felt guilty for doing something foolish. The next day, when he was about to go to a meeting, Tae-sang found Midu's worn shoes. He then asked the girl to wear a different pair of shoes to show respect for the important client who would be coming. Jae-hee realizes that Midu is wearing the shoes he gave her. The client he was waiting for never came, so Jae-hee took the initiative to call Song-ju. Jae-hee is angry because Song-ju accepts clients at another location. Song-ju defends herself by saying that he is no longer Tae-sang's business partner. The investors who came were part of his own network. Song-ju has the right to steal investors from Tae-sang considering they are now rivals. Tae-sang takes it calmly, unlike Jae-hee who gets upset because Song-ju is mixing personal matters with business. Jae-hee understands that Song-ju is actually heartbroken because his love is unrequited.
연인 관계가 틀어졌다고 해서 이렇게 일까지 망가뜨리는 건
Jae-hee insists on meeting Song-ju, although Tae-sang has already forbidden. Song-ju knows that Jae-hee likes Midu, so he shouldn't have helped Tae-sang. Jae-hee will hate Tae-sang even more if he finds out the truth about why Chung-yi is in prison. Hearing this, Jae-hee very furious. Actually, Song-ju truly regrets having taken revenge on Tae-sang. She just wanted Tae-sang to feel the same heartache that she felt. Meanwhile, Midu asks about Tae-sang's departure to Kglyazu's company. She was sure it had something to do with the cancellation of the work contract. Tae-sang tries to explain this misunderstanding, but Midu seemed resigned. She will do whatever Tae-sang wants. That night, Tae-sang was ready to apologize for earlier. While visiting Midu's house, Tae-sang sees that the roof of her house is almost collapsing. Tae-sang then invited Midu's family to stay at his house until the repairs were finished. Everyone agreed except for Midu's father. He couldn't be persuaded because he couldn't forgive Tae-sang's past mistakes. Tae-sang realizes that his mistake was truly unforgivable, so that he doesn't deserve forgiveness from Midu's father.
제가 그렇게 마음에 안 드십니까?
On the other hand, while cleaning the room, Chom-hee unexpectedly found a photo of Midu on Jae-hee's computer screen. He also saw Midu was wearing the shoes Jae-hee had given her when he visited Golden Tree. Chong-hee tasks Jae-hee to stop liking Midu. He doesn't want Jae-hee and Tae-sang to end up fighting just because of a woman. Instead, Jae-hee challenged Chong-hee to tell the real reason he went to prison. Chong-hee promised that one day he would tell Jae-hee the truth.
나 지금껏
He then planned to invite Jae-hee to have a drink at Tae-sang's house. At first, Tae-sang refuses because he now lives with Midu's family. But Chong-hee insisted and wanted to be introduced to them. Jae-hee was surprised because it was his first time going to Tae-sang's house. The situation becomes awkward between himself and Midu. That night, Midu was contacted by Kglyazu, who offering her a job in New York. Kglyazu got this recommendation from Jae-hee, who asked for Midu to get a contract at her company. Kglyazu thinks that Jae-hee is Midu's boyfriend because he seems to be trying really hard to get his request granted. If Midu accepts Kglyazu's offer, Jae-hee decided to return to work in Hong Kong. Midu was surprised by this. Actually, she wanted to stop Jae-hee from leaving, but her heart told that doing so would be terribly wrong. Realizing this, Jae-hee immediately pulled Midu into his arms. When they were about to do the forbidden scene, Tae-sang unexpectedly arrived home. Jae-hee tries to explain that he was only helping Midu put up the frame. Tae-sang was a bit suspicious, especially after noticing that Jae-hee's clothes were a little messy. However, he held himself back from asking what had really happened. The next day, Tae-sang's suspicions were confirmed when he found a shirt with Jae-hee's name in his room. He felt so foolish for not realizing the signs that Midu and Jae-hee had a special relationship all this time. Filled with anger, Tae-sang tore Jae-hee's shirt. When he met Midu, Tae-sang tried to control his emotions. He doesn't discuss Midu's actions with Jae-hee. He just felt that Midu hadn't been happy all this time. Without Midu knowing, Tae-sang sent a package to Jae-hee which contained the torn his shirt. Jae-hee's body trembled as he realized that Tae-sang had found out about what he did with Midu.
미팅은 잘 진행되고 있지? 애써줘서 고맙다.
Jae-hee immediately sent a message to Midu about this. He was worried that Tae-sang might do something reckless. Tae-sang apparently only asked Midu to choose a wedding dress. Apparently, he wanted to speed up their wedding because he didn't want to lose Midu. However, Jae-hee ultimately chose to return to South Korea in order to personally meet Tae-sang. He admitted he had liked Midu since they were in Hong Kong. According to Jae-hee, Midu isn't a good match with Tae-sang. She deserves someone who is her equal and shares her views. If Tae-sang truly loves Midu, he should be willing to let her go. Tae-sang still believes that Midu has feelings for him, but Jae-hee isn't so sure about that. Jae-hee thinks that Midu is holding back to repay Tae-sang's kindness.
7년 전에 동네에서 본 적이 있고.
Tae-sang has now put behind him the incident from the other day when Jae-hee's shirt was left in his room. For him, Jae-hee is the most important person, so he doesn't want any conflict to arise between the two of them. Jae-hee actually opposes Tae-sang even more in order to support the girl he loves. After his meeting with Tae-sang, Jae-hee stops by Midu's bookstore. Unexpectedly, Midu is there, and Jae-hee hugs her tightly. He can't stop worrying about her. Jae-hee admits that he has told Tae-sang everything. Midu then regrets Jae-hee's actions, who he's only putting himself at a disadvantage. Midu hopes Jae-hee will stop because she doesn't want to betray Tae-sang again.
사장님을 배신하면 안 된다고.
Unexpectedly, the person they were talking about suddenly shows up. Jae-hee refuses when asked to leave. Instead, he wants to talk about their relationship right in front of Tae-sang. After Midu begs, Jae-hee finally agrees to hide upstairs. Before leaving with Tae-sang, Midu follows Jae-hee upstairs. Midu warns Jae-hee to get out after Tae-sang's car leaves. Jae-hee then hugs Midu, full of regret. He should have dared to get to know Midu a long time ago. Unbeknownst to him, Tae-sang witnessed the incident. Midu and Jae-hee were surprised, but they didn't have a chance to explain. Without a word, Tae-sang grabbed Midu's arm and hit Jae-hee. Tae-sang then takes Midu back to his house. He tries to forgive what happened the other day and tonight, but he doesn't want to hear a single word from Midu. Tae-sang is worried that anything she says might hurt his feelings. On the other hand, Midu is also afraid for her own fate. She doesn't know how much longer she can endure this situation. With great courage, Midu confessed her feelings to Jae-hee. Tae-sang ignores all that because he really wants Midu to be with him and love only him. On the other hand, Jae-hee admits to Chang-hee that he has told Tae-sang about Midu. Chang-hee is angry because Jae-hee disobeyed his orders. His sacrifice seems pointless if everything just ended like this. At the same time, he also feels sorry seeing Chang-hee suffer.
실수했다고 해.
Unbeknownst to Chang-hee, Jae-hee asks Seonju about the incident 7 years ago. Together with Young-gap, Seonju twists the facts and accuses Tae-sang, who has a framing Chang-hee. Seonju did it to destroy Tae-sang to keep that man for herself. Fortunately, Jae-hee didn't immediately believe what they said. When Tae-sang wasn't home, Jae-hee came over to visit Midu. Jae-hee's plan to run away with Midu was ultimately stopped as the girl didn't want to put Jae-hee in danger since Tae-sang would never let him go. Unbeknownst to them, their actions were recorded by Tae-sang's camera, which was still on. When he got home, Tae-sang realized that he had forgotten to turn off his camera. Tae-sang then replayed the footage on it. Unexpectedly, he sees a video of Midu's meeting with Jae-hee. His heart was truly wounded to the point he couldn't control himself. Tae-sang went on a rampage after seeing the recording. Midu, who heard him from her room, was terrified. She pretended to be asleep when Tae-sang came into her room. Tae-sang vents his anger by driving at high speed. Unexpectedly, his car tire burst, causing the car to lose control. Luckily, Tae-sang immediately braked so he didn't hit the road divider. The incident left Tae-sang deeply traumatized. He decided to stay at a countryside villa and cut off all communication to find some peace. Everyone at the office was looking for him, including Chong-hee. He asked Midu about Tae-sang's whereabouts, but the girl didn't know.
Chang-hee asks Midu to stay away from Jae-hee and not play with Tae-sang's feelings.
Midu felt a bit offended because all this time she had tried to be sincere with Tae-sang, but still couldn't love him with all her heart. Apparently, she finds comfort in Jae-hee.
인생은 아직 한참 남았고 나를 위한 시간도 필요한데.
Upon arriving home, Chong-hee reprimands Jae-hee for his reckless behavior. Jae-hee remains still stubborn because he plans to leave Golden Tree once the deal with the Hong Kong investor is finalized. After searching everywhere, Chong-hee finally finds Tae-sang's whereabouts. He was very worried about Tae-sang, but he showed that he was just fine. By accident, Chong-hee found Tae-sang's camera while helping him pack. He played the recording inside, which began with Tae-sang expressing his love for Midu. The end of that recording makes Chong-hee very shocked. He couldn't hold back his anger after seeing footage of Midu with Jae-hee. Tae-sang was extremely angry after watching that recording. Chong-hee then blamed Jae-hee and Midu for what happened. That night, Tae-sang attended a meeting with Midu's family at a restaurant because he had something important to discuss. It turns out that Tae-sang decided to stay outside of Seoul and allowed Midu's family to live in his house until the repairs were finished. Midu also mentioned that she postponed her plans to marry with Tae-sang in order to fulfill Kalyazu's offer.
전 아직 결혼할 생각이 없어요. 특히나
Unlike usual, Tae-sang actually let Midu go, who was about to process her resignation. Tae-sang doesn't want to be a threat to Midu in achieving her dream. He felt this was the best decision, rather than having Midu think about someone else while being with him. Midu chases Tae-sang to return the engagement ring, but he tells Midu to just sell it because he doesn't need it anymore. He already considered Midu's debt paid off so that she didn't need to feel burdened. If he had to express his feelings, Tae-sang wants Midu to disappear from this world. He had never felt such intense pain, and even his previously hopeless life became better after he met Midu. No matter how good Tae-sang acts, Midu still sees him as a bad person. Tae-sang feels like his life is meaningless.
진심이야. 그러네?
Day by day, Tae-sang's body becomes weaker and looks unkempt. Chong-hee can't bear to see Tae-sang, who seems to have lost himself. He doesn't want Tae-sang to end up like this and promises to restore things to before. It turned out Chong-hee was planning something bad for Midu. He threatens to spread the video footage of Midu and Jae-hee. If you don't want that to happen, then Midu has to explain everything. Chong-hee then arranged their meeting in a secluded place because he intended to harm Midu without anyone else knowing. Long story short, Midu arrived at the agreed location when it was already night. She looked for the house Chong-hee mentioned, however, she couldn't find it. Chong-hee turned off his phone, so Midu called Tae-sang. Unfortunately, the man didn't answer her phone. As Midu turned around, a car was speeding towards her. The car, driven by Chang-hee, hit Midu, sending her body flying.
네가 이 세상에 없었으면 좋겠다.
Chong-hee immediately fled as soon as he saw another car approaching. After hearing that Midu had an accident, Tae-sang immediately went to the hospital. He was devastated by what had happened. Midu's father is furious and accuses Tae-sang of ordering criminal to hurt his daughter. If anything happens to Midu, Mr. Kyung-wook will not hesitate to kill Tae-sang.
시켜서 이 짓 해놓은 거 아니야?
아저씨 진정하세요.
Suddenly, Tae-sang thought it was likely Chung-hee was the culprit. He remembered Chung-hee's last words about wanting to return everything to how it was before Midu came. Jae-hee, who was there, couldn't hide his worries. As soon as Midu woke up, he and Tae-sang went straight into the inpatient room. The first thing Midu did was hold Tae-sang's hand tightly. Midu doesn't remember what happened last night, and she doesn't recognize Jae-hye.
내가 왜 여기 있어요?
According to the doctor, Midu had lost her short-term memory, but this condition could recover within a few months. Midu must focus on healing her paralyzed leg due to joint dislocation. Midu is worried that the paralysis in her legs will last a long time or even become permanent. Tae-sang then tries to comfort Midu by inviting her to go on a vacation with her family. When Tae-sang mentions Hong Kong, she doesn't remember ever going there. Midu's cell phone, who was damaged after being thrown, finally can be repaired. Midu sees that there is a lot of call history to Chom-hee's number on the night of the accident, so she calls him back. At that time, Midu asked why she called Chong-hee, but the man claimed not to know anything. Actually, Midu hoped Chong-hee's explanation could help her remember or find the culprit. But Tae-sang asked Midu not to force herself to remember everything because it could endanger her health. Without Midu's knowledge, Tae-sang deletes Chong-hee's call history from her phone. Meanwhile, Jae hasn't given up helping Midu recover memory. He asked Midu a lot of questions and showed photos of their time together. Midu feels uncomfortable, so she asks Jae-hee to leave. He is asked to focus on his business in Hong Kong while Tae-sang will take care of Midu. Unexpectedly, Jae-hee suspects Tae-sang as the hit-and-run perpetrator, but he denies committing the heinous act. Tae-sang's suspicions toward Chong-hee grew even stronger. Without much hesitation, Chong-hee confessed to everything he had done. He did it because he couldn't bear to see Tae-sang heartbroken. Chong-hee was grateful that Midu didn't remember Jae-hee. Tae-sang would keep quiet about this, but Chong-hee needed to be careful since Jae-hee was already investigating the culprit. Song-ju learns that Tae-sang's younger sibling is still alive. It was revealed that the man had been adopted by a businessman living in Hong Kong. Unexpectedly, the businessman is a potential investor in Golden Tree. One day, Song-ju asks Jae-hee for help in finding out who the businessman is. Jae-hee meets the businessman's son, who is the company representative. The man known as Roy Jang is probably Taemin. After her meeting with Jae-hee, Song-ju visits Midu at the hospital. Midu felt confused as Song-ju's face seemed unfamiliar. Song-ju's visit makes things more complicated if the woman says the wrong thing. Tae-sang immediately asks Song-ju to leave the hospital.
너무 내치는 분위기다.
Unexpectedly, Song-ju found out about Midu's accident last night. Song-ju suspects that Tae-sang told Chong-hee to hit the girl because she saw Chong-hee around the crime scene acting suspiciously. Tae-sang is angry and wants to silence Song-ju so that she doesn't talk carelessly. But without realizing it, Midu's father overheard their entire conversation. After getting out of the hospital, Tae-sang takes Midu on a vacation. She enjoys the fresh air even though she has to use a wheelchair. While Midu was relaxing alone at the summit chom, he suddenly approached her. Midu's betrayal of Tae-sang and her affair with Jae are unforgivable to Chong-hee. He believes Midu is pretending she lost her memory for her next plan. He would not let Midu toy with Tae-sang anymore. Midu then taken to a faraway place so Tae-sang can't find her. While trying to get down by herself, Midu couldn't control his wheelchair until she fell into the ravine and fainted. Raindrops then woke Midu up. She tried to get out of that place, but her legs wouldn't move. Midu felt like she was being punished for betraying Tae-sang's feelings. Meanwhile, Tae-sang runs into Chang-hee when he goes to pick up Midu. He became suspicious that Chang-hee had done something to the girl he loved so much. Without wasting any time, Tae-sang immediately looked for Midu in all directions. Fortunately, Tae-sang was able to find her quickly, but strangely, Midu looked terrified and kept apologizing. The next day, Midu realized that Tae-sang had slept beside her. Midu reminded Tae-sang about their obligation to maintain boundaries before marriage, which she once said during a business trip with Jae-hee. Midu's words made Tae-sang realize that Midu's memory has now returned. Tae-sang then remembered what Chang-hee had said about Midu pretending to be paralyzed and to have lost her memory. He intended to prove it himself as time went on. Just like Tae-sang, Jae-hee also knew that Midu was hiding her true condition for reasons that were still unclear. Jae-hee asked Mi-jun to put up Khaleesi's poster in Midu's room, along with a brief short message. After their meeting, Jae-hee catches Tae-sang and Chang-hee talking about something. He felt they were hiding something. On the other hand, the poster from Jae-hee managed to catch Midu's eye. After seeing the message on the poster, Midu removed the poster before Tae-sang saw it. Unexpectedly, as she tried to reach for the poster, Midu was able to move her leg. She could also stand up straight, just like before. Midu couldn't hide her happiness. She immediately went outside when her mother called her to gather in the living room. At the same time, Midu's father came to see Tae-sang. He admits that overheard Tae-sang's conversation with Song-ju at the hospital. Tae-sang is asked to turn himself into the police, but Midu stops him because she suddenly remembers the night of the accident she experienced. Unexpectedly, Midu gives false testimony when she is interrogated by the police. Midu mentioned that the car that hit her was white, which contradicted the witness's statement. The witness saw that the car was black or gray. The next day, Midu arranged to meet Jae-hee at a park. She told the man not to worry and not to blame Tae-sang. Midu won't tell the truth if Chang-hee is the culprit to protect Jae-hee's feelings. Meanwhile, Midu's father was still not satisfied with his daughter's testimony. He asked Jae-hee for help to find out the real culprit. When Chang-hee's name was mentioned, Jae-hee was very surprised. He also became worried that Chang-hee might really be the culprit. That suspicion was confirmed when the apartment manager informed them about Chang-hee's car being in the parking lot. Jae-hee saw that the car was badly damaged, as if it had just been used to hit something. Song-ju also confirmed this because she saw Chang-hee herself near the scene before the incident. On the other hand, Midu's shoe soles looked dirty as if she had just stepped on something. Tae-sang investigates this, including looking at CCTV from places Midu might have visited. From the CCTV footage, it shows that Midu had just met with Jae-hee. That night, Tae-sang prepared a birthday surprise for Midu. He gave her a special gift, a pair of shoes, and asked her to walk toward him, wearing the new shoes he had just given her.
엉터리 연기는 집어치고 걸어오라고 시작을 해!
Midu couldn't stand Tae-sang's constant insistence anymore, so that she followed his orders. All this time, she had been hiding her condition to protect Jae-hee. Midu's words further emphasized just how deep her love for Jae-hee is. In despair, Tae-sang decided to let Midu go so she could be with Jae-hee. Midu rejects the decision as she wants to stay with Tae-sang. She would try her best to love him. But Tae-sang doesn't want to see Midu continue to suffer and live a lie with him. On the other hand, Chang-hee finds out that Dong-gu embezzled company money for gambling. Dong-gu is asked to return the money as soon as possible if he doesn't want to go to jail. In a difficult situation, Dong-gu was forced to borrow money from Yonggap. Yonggap then provokes Dong-gu as Chang-hee is always given special treatment by Tae-sang. Dong-gu ended up believing Yonggap's words, which made him start to hate Chang-hee. Donggu challenges Chung-hee, who is about to report to Tae-sang and the company's investigation team.
형을 한 대 칠 수도 있을 것 같아서.
The two end up getting into a fight. Donggu can't beat Chung-hee, who keeps hitting him. Chung-hee didn't want this conflict to happen because he considered Donggu as his brother. While Chung-hee was off guard, Donggu threw cement at his face, who causing Chung-hee to slip and fall from a height. Donggu didn't expect his actions to have fatal consequences. He didn't imagine Chung-hee would get hurt from their fight. Donggu doesn't know what to do, especially when Tae-sang arrives on the scene. At that moment, Donggu ran as fast as he could toward his hiding place. Tae-sang finds Chung-hee unconscious with his head full of wounds. He immediately took the man to the hospital to get medical treatment. Fortunately, Chung-hee made it through the critical period, even though he still hadn't woken up from his coma. Doctors said the worst possible outcome for Chung-hee was brain damage. The bad news about Chung-hee eventually reached Jae-hee. Tae-sang is accused of being the culprit, but he continues to deny it. Tae-sang had no idea why Chung-hee fell in the construction area. Unbeknownst to Tae-sang, at that time Donggu tries to hide his guilt for fear of his actions being exposed.
아직 못 견하고 있어.
Tae-sang remembered Chung-hee's words some time ago. If something happens to Chung-hee, she is asked to go to his house and open his grandmother's photo frame. There, Chung-hee had written a letter about the secret he had been keeping from Jae-hee. Actually, Jae-hee was not Chung-hee's biological sibling. Jae-hee is the child of a Hong Kong businessman named Mr. Jin Myung, who is also Roy Jang's father. His selfishness all this time has made Jae-hee live a life full of suffering. He didn't want to return Jae-hee to his biological parents because he didn't want to live alone after his grandmother passed away. If only Chung-hee had introduced Jae-hee to Mr. Jin Myung back then, his life might have been happier. That regret made Chung-hee determined to give Jae-hee a higher education so that one day his father would be proud. Tae-sang learns from what Chung-hee has experienced.
형이 사랑하는 여자를 좋아한.
Selfishness will only make Mido look even more pitiful. Before Mido said goodbye, Tae-sang apologized for having put her through difficult times. After going through everything with Mido, Tae-sang becomes doubtful about his feelings. He also can't control himself when he's angry. Tae-sang's temperamental nature made Mido even more afraid, but she felt sorry for him.
미안하고 고맙고.
The letter written by Chung-hee wasn't just about Jae-hee. The man also talked about Mrs. Honja and her current whereabouts. With full courage, Tae-sang then visits Mrs. Honja's shop. Tae-sang started to shed tears from the first bite of food he was eating. It's been a long time since he tasted his mother's cooking. Tae-sang actually misses his mother very much, but he can't express it. Mrs. Honja recognized Sun's voice, but she hesitated to greet him. In the end, Mrs. Honja couldn't hold back her tears when Tae-sang paid with a large sum of money.
아저씨가 100만 원짜리 수표를 놓고 왔어요.
After returning from looking after Chang-hee at the hospital, Jae-hee finds Tae-sang's phone at his house. Tae-sang explains the reason he went to Jae-hee's house was to read a letter from Chung-hee. Jae-hee was given the choice to either read the letter or hear it directly from Chung-hee once he regained consciousness. It turned out that the letter was very important because it was related to Jae-hee. Tae-sang's request was rejected by Jae-hee, who was still filled with hatred. Jae-hee's feelings of anger and annoyance towards Tae-sang make it impossible for her to think clearly. Currently, Jae-hee doesn't need to worry because Tae-sang has ended his relationship with Mido. Tae-sang wants Jae-hee to take good care of that girl.
미도랑 끝냈어.
That good news, of course, made Jae-hee excited. He immediately met Mido, feeling very happy. Even then, Jae-hee wasn't afraid of being scolded by Mother Sunny. The girl is then invited to visit Chang-hee in the hospital. Unexpectedly, they meet Tae-sang, who wants to know about Chang-hee's condition. Jae-hee asks Tae-sang to leave and not to come to the hospital anymore. Before he could take a step, The police suddenly came to arrest Chong-hee. Hearing this fact, Jae-hee couldn't accept if Chong-hee being imprisoned again. He then asks for help from Song-ju and Young-gap to prove that Tae-sang is guilty. Young-gap immediately refused because he didn't want to get involved and risk going to jail. Meanwhile, Song-ju actually agrees to it, but she sets conditions that Jae-hee must fulfill. She asks Jae-hee to let Mr. Ji-myung take over Golden Tree.
시나리오를 좀 짜볼게요.
At first, Mr. Ji-myung and Roy Jang were surprised when they heard the offer, but Jae-hee managed to convince them. Jae-hee claimed he did that because Tae-sang would soon be investigated by the authorities for a certain case. Roy Jang was also sent to Korea to meet Tae-sang in person.
부회장님이십니다. 이쪽은 골든트리 한태상 사장님.
The man has yet to realize that Roy Jang is Taemin. He acted normally and welcomed the man warmly. Tae-sang was then asked to guide Roy Jang's trip while he was in South Korea. They both eat together. Tae-sang then tells that he actually has a younger sibling. They had been separated for over a decade because of a certain issue.
이메일 맞으십니까?
Awesome.
He and his younger sibling often went to buy tteokbokki where Roy Jang is now. Tae-sang has tried to find his younger sibling, but so far he hasn't been able to find them. However, Tae-sang won't give up and still holds on to the hope that they will meet again.
어릴 때 집안 사정으로 헤어지게 됐습니다.
After dropping off Roy Jang, Tae-sang meets Jae-hee to tell him about Chong-hee's letter. Jae-hee finally finds out Chong-hee is not his biological brother. Jae-hee can't believe it, because all this time Chong-hee cared for him so much and was so affectionate, as if they really were siblings. That fact was just too painful for him. Jae-hee refused when asked to read his letter out loud. He hoped that Chong-hee would come to his senses soon and explain everything that had happened.
내 친형 아니야?
Tae-sang is disappointed in Jae-hee's selfish and indifferent attitude. All this time, she had misjudged Jae-hee, who turned out to be troubled. Tae-sang is indeed a criminal, but unlike Jae-hee, he doesn't think about revenge. Instead, he actually feels sorry for Chang-hee, who has been sacrificing for his younger sibling all along. Jae-hee thinks his life has become a mess because of Tae-sang. Without Tae-sang knowing, Jae-hee wants to get revenge by ruining his life. On the other hand, the Midu family residence lives was bought by Song-ju without their knowledge. Midu's father was asked to vacate the building by the end of the month. Ayam Midu requested contract extension, however not granted. This is because they are often late in paying rent. Mrs. Sunny was frustrated as finding another place was hard.
내가 장담하건대 그 본부장이랑 먼지랑은 절대 해피엔.
Mi-jun asks his mother to be patient because he'll look for a new place tomorrow. When she got home, she found Tae-sang waited for Midu at the bookstore. Tae-sang then hands over a letter from Chong-hee for her to read. He wants Midu to deliver the letter to Jae-hee since he doesn't want to listen to him. Before going home, Tae-sang bought books Midu's store. The girl refused to take any money from Tae-sang because she felt the book simply wasn't worth everything Tae-sang had done for her family. Tae-sang asks Midu not to feel guilty and to live happily together with Jae-hee.
그리고 너도 이제 나한테 미안하지 말고.
Midu quickly conveyed Tae-sang's request to Jae-hee. Midu also reveals that Mr. Ji-myung is Jae-hee's biological father. Jae-hee didn't believe those words at all. Instead, he got angry because Midu was still in contact with Tae-sang. When they were about to go out for dinner, Midu found the DNA test results report on the car seat. Jae-hee explains that it has to do with Tae-sang and Taemin.
한태민이 누군지 알아요?
Midu asks Jae-hee to quickly tell Tae-sang as he's looked for his sibling for a long time. Jae-hee refused the request since Tae-sang caused Chong-hee to end up in the hospital. Midu regrets Jae-hee's change in attitude. Jae-hee's deep and overwhelming hatred made her truly unable to distinguish right and wrong. Jae-hee actually planned to trap Tae-sang by taking all his achievements. Unexpectedly, Tae-sang's secretary has noticed something strange about Jae-hee. After securing an agreement from Roy Jang, he immediately contacted the board members to support her decision to sell Golden Tree. Roy Jang already knows Jae-hee's true intentions. He suspects that Jae-hee holds a grudge against Tae-sang because of a woman. Secretly, Roy Jang asked his team to investigate Jae-hee. When asked for his opinion, Mr. Ji Myung asked Roy Jang to protect Tae-sang, who is his biological older brother. Mr. Ji Myung advises Roy Jang to forgive Tae-sang immediately. On one hand, Roy Jang hates Tae-sang, but on the other hand, he feels sorry for his older brother. Tae-sang's visit to her restaurant made Mrs. Hanja terrified, as it reminded her of mistakes from the past. Unexpectedly, Tae-sang was warm and didn't bring up the issue at all. Tae-sang then asks about Taemin, but Mrs. Hanja doesn't know where he is. The woman said that there was a customer who claimed to be Taemin. Unfortunately, at that time she didn't have the courage to confirm it. At the same time, Yeonggap suddenly showed up. Mrs. Hanja knew him who brought Taemin to the shop. Tae-sang gets angry because Yeonggap brings a fake Taemin to mess with his family.
내 동생으로 사기를 쳐?
Meanwhile, while she was looking at houses to rent, Midu caught Roy Jang standing in front of the house. Midu apparently recognizes that house as Tae-sang's old house. Midu immediately goes to visit Tae-sang at the construction site to tell him what she just saw. Unexpectedly, a heavy object fell from above. Midu pushed Tae-sang to stop him being hit. Midu's knee was injured, so Tae-sang insisted on taking her to the hospital. Midu refused as her wound was treatable with antiseptic. She expressed her intention to visit Tae-sang. Jae-hee, who was there, stopped Midu from telling the truth. Midu then warned Jae not to mess around with Tae-sang's family.
사장님도 아세요.
After arguing with Jae-hee, the girl decided to go home and treat her knee. Tae-sang couldn't bear to see Midu walking with an injured foot. Midu had no choice but to get into the car to get home quickly. Unfortunately, their trip was delayed by traffic and road construction. Tae-sang stopped in front of the pharmacy to buy antiseptic so that Midu's wound wouldn't get worse. That small gesture apparently made Midu unable to hide her bright, genuine smile. At that moment, Midu took this opportunity to let them know that Roy Jang is Tae-sang's younger brother. She had proof, one of which was the incident earlier that morning when Roy Jang visited Tae-sang's old house. Midu also isn't too sure yet, so Tae-sang is asked to investigate further. To prove it, Tae-sang immediately flew to Hong Kong to meet Mr. Ji Myung. Unexpectedly, he already knew that Tae-sang and Roy Jang were biological brothers. According to Mr. Ji Myung, Roy Jang has his own reasons for not telling Tae-sang until now. Tae-sang gives Chang-hee the business card Mr. Ji Myung once gave him. Tae-sang then invited Mr. Ji Myung to South Korea to meet his biological child. Once he regains consciousness, Chang-hee will explain the reason why he never handed over Jae-hee all this time. Just as Tae-sang was saying goodbye to go home, Mr. Ji Myung suffered a heart attack. Meanwhile, Jae-hee kept her promise to introduce Seon-ju to Roy Jang. Seon-ju gets angry when she finds out that Jae-hee plans to sell Golden Tree to Roy Jang's company. That was not in line with their original plan. Seon-ju does want to see Tae-sang lose everything, but he feels that this way is just too cruel.
동생 누구 먼저 갈 이창이가 아니야. 절대 안 죽어.
Meanwhile, Dong-gu confesses everything he has done. Yeonggap stops Dong-gu from doing that because it would actually harm him. If Tae-sang finds out, he could end up in jail or be treated even worse. Yeonggap actually suggests poisoning Chang-hee so that the real truth doesn't come out, and Tae-sang remains the suspect. Yeonggap's words made Dong-gu angry. He won't do what Yeonggap ordered because Chang-hee is more valuable. Dong-gu hopes that Chang-hee will wake up soon so he can apologize. When Chang-hee opened his eyes, Dong-gu was happy. He regretted what he had done and begged for forgiveness. As soon as he heard the news, Jae-hee rushed to the hospital. Chang-hee explains why he fell from the construction site. Jae-hee didn't believe it, but Dong-gu explained the sequence of events. It was actually Tae-sang who brought Chung-hee to the hospital. Chung-hee also confirmed what Tae-sang said about the letter he left behind. From the start, Chung-hee loved Jae-hee and would do anything for Jae-hee, even hurting Midu. Jae-hee learns the truth about the hit-and-run accident that happened to Midu. Chang-hee did it of his own will, not because Tae-sang ordered him to. The same goes for the incident 7 years ago. Chung-hee was framed by Tae-sang because he was actually the one who killed the gangster boss. Chung-hee really regrets that Jae-hee trusts Young-gap's words too much. She also felt sorry for Tae-sang because all this time he had been receiving hatred from Jae-hee. Meanwhile, Tae-sang tries to forgive Mrs. Hanja. He had come to understand his mother's situation back then and wanted to start a new chapter. Madame Hanja tears up as Tae-sang accepts her back. After returning from a picnic with his mother, Tae-sang was asked to go to the police station to give a statement regarding the discovery of a skull on a mountain. The skull belonged to Sung-joon, the man who once lived with Mrs. Hanja. It turned out that Tae-sang was a suspect because he was the last person to see the man. Sung-ju won't stand by and wants to protect Tae-sang. It also talks about Roy Jang and Golden Tree, which was sold by Jae-hee. Tae-sang already knew about it, but he didn't make an issue out of it. Sung-ju feels sorry for Tae-sang, never lived happily. She loved that man very much and hoped to marry him so she could get rid of the loneliness she felt. Promptly, Tae-sang agreed to Sung-ju's request. With a joyful heart, Sung-ju quickly prepared everything needed for their wedding. Sung-ju and Tae-sang's wedding plans are opposed by Young-gap. With a face full of hatred, Young-gap intends to prepare a truly shocking and unexpected surprise for their wedding day.
너네 끝까지 불행해지기 위해서 몸부림을 치니.
Young-gap is forced to explain what gift they're talking about. He admitted that he was a witness to the incident when Tae-sang got into a fight with Sung-joon. While drunk, Sung-joon hit Tae-sang with a rock until he eventually passed out. As Sung-joon was walking quite unsteadily, he accidentally slipped and fell down the stairs. Sung-joon's life could not be saved. Chung-hee, seeing this, took Sung-joon's body and buried it in the mountains. I fear Tae-sang will become a suspect. Chung-hee didn't realize that his actions had been found out by Young-gap. Sung-ju asked him to give an honest statement to the police, just as requested, but he still refused. The news about Tae-sang being named a suspect made Midu worried. She suddenly remembered the rest of Chung-hee's letter that Tae-sang hadn't shown her. However, Tae-sang refused to reveal the rest of the letter because it concerned Chung-hee's privacy. Midu just wants to help clear Tae-sang's name. She so deeply regrets misjudging that man, even now. At the same time, Sung-ju arrives and Tae-sang announces their marriage. Midu was a bit surprised to hear the news, although she tried, quite carefully, to hide it. The bad news about Tae-sang also reached Chung-hee's ears. He met Mr. Ji-myung and revealed absolutely everything in complete detail. Chung-hee also explained the reason why he hadn't told anyone about Jae-hee's whereabouts all this time. Chung-hee asks Mr. Ji-myung to look after Jae-hee from now on. He would soon turn himself into the authorities and confess to being the one who buried Sung-joon.
우리 제이 잘 부탁드립니다.
The police's decision to name Tae-sang as a suspect has significantly affected the company. Tae-sang was asked to step down by board. Roy Jang remembers Mr. Jin-myung's words to protect Tae-sang without hurting Jae-hee. She decided to withdraw from the sponsorship, even though Jae-hee would be replacing Tae-sang. From the very beginning, Roy Jang was only willing to invest in or buy the company if Tae-sang remained as president. After attending the meeting, Roy Jang invited Tae-sang to Madame Honja's shop. He was reunited with that woman who couldn't hide her happiness at being able to see her second child again. Roy Jang tried to resist, but his longing for Mrs. Honja was already unbearable. He let his mother embrace him tightly. In the end, Tae-sang decided to resign from Golden Tree. He would hand over the company to Roy Jang. Tae-sang believes that his younger brother can manage the company well. Meanwhile, Jae-hee meets Mr. Ji-myung for the first time. He couldn't believe he still had a parent, since all this time he had only lived with his grandmother and Chung-hee. Mr. Ji-myung also didn't imagine that this would happen in his life. He has 4 children: Roy Jang, Tae-sang, Jae-hee, and Chung-hee.
큰 부자가 되었어.
Jae-hee refuses to live with Mr. Ji-myung because she doesn't want to be apart from Chung-hee. Jae-hee wanted to thank Chung-hee for raising him so sincerely. Midu postponed her departure to New York to attend Tae-sang's wedding party. Jae-hee realized that Midu still had feelings for that man.
내 인생의 한순간에 있었던 사람이에요.
Tae-sang's wedding fell through because Sonju, the bride, never showed up. The girl made a deal with Young Gap. If she cancels the wedding, then Young Gap will testify in Sung Jun's case. Sung Jun did that because he loves Tae-sang very much. I don't want Tae-sang to suffer like before again. 2 years later, Mida finished her contract in New York. Shisa's old building became a bookstore. She doesn't know yet that Tae-san is the one who opened that bookstore. Mida left a quote on the available whiteboard. By accident, that quote was read by Tae-sang. And the next day, Mida read another quote, which made her even more convinced that it was Tae-sang who wrote it. Mida waited in the bookstore until she started to feel sleepy. She was grateful she didn't leave because she was able to meet Tae-sang again. The two of them decided to start their lives over from the beginning.